Greetings, this is a very strange AI. Welcome to my video. Engineer. Theoretically, one of the more complicated classes in the game, I personally find it far less problematic than Elementalist. Engineer is probably the single most customizable class in the game. You can be anything from a short-ranged AoE-focused character to a long-range sniper to a highly mobile, zippy character that annoys me in World v World. But you can't do all these things at once, so make your picks. Its core mechanic is built around something called a tool belt. Each utility move you equip will have a associated tool belt skill will also grant. This can add to the complexity of creating an engineer, which can be a bit daunting to new players. It is also worth mentioning that engineer cannot weapon swap, much like Elementalist, but instead it grants access to toolkits. So you could use a utility move to get a flamethrower, for example. But no, there's a bit of an opportunity cost for this, as doing so is going to take up one of your utility slots, and you need to decide whether it's worth it to get an extra weapon or to have another ability that you might prefer. All in all, building Elementalist can be complicated, but you can almost do anything you want with it. Scrapper. Scrapper is the other class I am going to suggest learning the combo system for, as many of its abilities are built around it. Scrapper's abilities generate gyros, which cause fields around you, which you can then use for your combo systems. It has access to Hammer, a melee weapon with a large amount of combo potential. Scrapper tends to have a reputation for being a tanky character, high survivability, though you can build it multiple different ways, either offensively or in a more healing-oriented manner. Hollowsmith. Hollowsmith is your most aggressive option for engineer. It gains access to the heat mechanic linked to a special toolkit weapon ability. Because this weapon gains access to is short-ranged, it tends to play towards melee. While the Hollowsmith is using its special weapon, known as a Hollow Forge, it'll build up heat. As its heat gets higher, it will improve its damage output and abilities, but if you let it get too high, it will explode, locking you out of the Hollow Forge for quite a while and doing a large amount of damage to yourself over time. As such, playing a Hollowsmith is very much about timing and cutting things close, and generally favors high-risk, high-reward playstyles. Hollowsmith can be incredibly deadly in the right hands, but can take a bit more getting used to many other characters. Hollowsmith has access to Sword, which perhaps unsurprisingly is a melee weapon. The Sword also increases in power as you gain heat, playing more into Hollowsmith's general playstyle. I will note that there is several graphics glitches associated with the Hollowsmith's Hollow Forge. It's supposed to change color as you go up in heat, but for many people it just doesn't seem to work properly. I think this has something to do with armor, though I'm not too sure. I know mine just sometimes doesn't change color when it's supposed to, and I know some people which only parts of their body change. Hopefully this is corrected and is not an issue by the time you're playing, but I thought I should mention it here anyway. Mechanist. Mechanist is a pit-orientated engineer. Mechanist loses access to all of its tool belt skills. In exchange, it gets this massive robot. Said robot is very effective. Gains access to sigils, which are also surprisingly effective utility skills. The lack of the tool belt makes the Mechanist the easiest engineer to create, and as such is probably one of the most common types you will see around. That said, it is not necessarily always the easiest to play. A large amount of the Mechanist's power budget is in its pet, and as such you cannot just sort of leave it to do its own thing. You very much got to coordinate with it. Mechanists can build in multiple different ways, but they tend to be summed up as ranged power-orientated builds, melee condition-orientated builds, and more melee support-orientated builds. Well, that about wraps it up for Engineer. Hopefully you should have some fun tinkering with this one.